turn it into a conversation. Typically, you diagnose a problem, turns into pain for the client, disturbed, that's a D. And I don't really need this dialogue, so we'll go back to 5. That was data. Disturb, and debrief is option generation, which is basically, you're not giving away the answer, but you're demonstrating confidence where the client sees your problem-solving skills, which makes you hireable. So diagnosing the pain and creating pain, Trevor. Diagnosing the pain is positive, but the highest calling here is being able to diagnose the pain and make yourself hireable. So I'm going to do one last time and then we're going to go through the case. I'll take questions. Data, diagram, diagnose, and that's pretty much in your head, the diagnosis. Disturb, debrief, option generation.
Or would you say that the real bridging, because the point of it is to get hired, is really in the disturbing part?
I would say it's all of this.
Okay.
This is bridging to me.
When you say disturb, can that also be asking the right questions?
That's data.
Okay.
If you have bad data, you can't do a good bridge.
Yep.
You're not talking to me about what's important to me. You're talking to me about somebody else. That's just yabba yabba talk.
So as part of data, Greg, not just quantitative, but also qualitative.
Absolutely.
The relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to pass this out, and we're gonna make it come to life.
So by disturbing, you're creating the pain, right? When you disturb them, you're actually asking the question. So when you, isn't it kind of hand in hand with a diagnose? When you disturb, you're diagnosing where that pitfall is when you ask the right questions. And it may go in any number of 2 or 3 orders.
You walk into a doctor's office. Tell me what's wrong. I'm the doctor. Why are you here?
Got a pain in my ass.
Okay, tell me about the pain in your ass. Don't tell me it's your wife.
Or your, never mind.
I've got pain stretching down my leg.
How long have you had it?
A month.
Are you sleeping? Are you crapping? Are you eating? What? Do you have a fever? What step am I going through?
Questions.
Data.
So no pain yet, just diagnose, just bringing it out, just bringing out that information, great.
Data. Let me show you what's going on. I have a picture of the anatomy. You see this? There might be an impingement in my diagram. Really, probably too early to do a diagnosis here because I got to do some more tests. One of the things that it could be is not gas. You could have a tumor lodged on your spinal cord.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to need you to go to the hospital and to have some internal tests done.
I'm in pain already.
Let me show you. So, probably a poor illustration. Everyone have one of these?
Mm-hmm.
You still have a question? I don't know if I answered.
I just want to know that they kind of work together. That's you know, you can't do one without the other, but they definitely flow around that same cycle of diagnosing and disturbing, where you identify the pain, or you identify them with questions, and as you're questioning them, you're pinpointing it in your own mind of where it is, and you're making it a little worse.
Let's see if you still have the question after we do it. All right. So let's see. How do we do this? Well, the data's already been done for you. Okay. So this is step 1. This is the data.
Would you agree though, Greg, if I want to ask a question?
Sure.
I mean, this is only really one part of the data though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know the relationship dynamics between the son and the business. I don't know if you're going to go there next.
We're going to go there next. So what Josh is suggesting is data is not always all in print. the reason you gotta memorize this stuff and learn it and do it over and over and over again is because if you can do this well and you can do it instinctively, then you can really get good at the business, because then you can understand what's really going on in the client's heart and mind. If you're preoccupied with trying to remember words and follow a path, you're not really in the situation. So what Josh is talking about is trying to really get in the situation and understand what's really going on, which is this is quantitative data, there's also qualitative data. Does the guy love his kids? Does he love his grandkids? Does he see himself in business forever? Does he hate his partner? What's really going on? So, good question, we'll try to get there. Okay, so we have a business owner. In the savings and after-tax investments, the guy has a will, it was done about 10 years ago, and he's got $600,000 of jointly titled property. Real estate, he has 2 homes, one on Long Island, one in Florida, both jointly titled. One worth $1.2 million with a debt of $400,000, the other has no debt. Guy owns a business, it's a ball bearings business in Long Island City. Dad is 100% owner. On the bottom, we see we made the business owner Josh, and he's 60 years old. Income from the business is $450,000, and his son is married with 2 children, 32 years old, and in the business. We've got sales, and based on a conversation with the dad, we think he thinks the value of the business is somewhere around $4.5 million. He's got a pension plan. He's got one that he closed down a while ago because he was giving away too much money to the other employees. And his wife used to be a teacher, and there's no buy-sell. Some insurance on the husband, bought a 10-year level term a few years ago. There's 9 years left, a year ago, and bought a whole life policy on his wife. Cindy's a stay-at-home. She was a stay-at-home mom after teaching for a couple of years. She does some charity work. She's 58. And they pay tax, $130,000. And they've got a daughter who's 34, married a wonderful guy. He's an executive. They live on Long Island. They have 2 children, a girl who's 7 and a boy who's 3. So that's data. There's a lot of different places we could take this. So if you were in a meeting and you did a proper approach talk, you'd have done this. What do you say next? What would you do next? That's what bridging is. Bridging is what you do next. You did data, now you're into a diagram. So what are we going to diagram? Anybody?
I would ask what type of will do you have?
Okay, Mitch?
I'd ask, what are your ambitions? And from that, we can see if this is going to...
What are my ambitions?
Yeah, well,
I don't know, what do you mean by ambitions?
what are your goals? Where do you want to do? When do you want to retire? Do you want to keep anything?
Not sure.
You're just making money to make money and to live every day.
I don't know.
You don't know where, you don't want to go anywhere?
I'm not sure. Golf, maybe? I'm not sure what you're
No.
asking. Okay.
And your wife, does she have any hobbies that she'd like to
It's charity,
grandchildren, are you concerned about them?
of course,
You want to provide for them?
of course.
What do you want to provide for them? College, or their homes, or you never want them to work?
Okay.
I have 2 questions first. One is, were we supposed to ask for the expenses or the savings, or do we save that for later?
I'm say that again.
Are we, when we're doing the fact finder,
Yeah.
are we supposed to,
This is the approach talk, right?
the
Yeah.
approach talk?
So the guy is making $450 and he's paying taxes of
On 1/3, so we
$130,000.
assume everything else is savings after that?
Well, we could get into a dialogue. So you're suggesting we get into a dialogue about how much is he saving and what is he doing with money?
And that's one, and 2 is, I mean, I guess common question is, what happens to business after he passes away?
Okay. So how would you ask that?
So in the event of death or disability, what happens to your business? Does your son take over? Is there any legal documents in place that says that your son takes the role or the position?
Succession.
Is there any money that, if you're not active in your business today, does your business need you? Or is your son enough of a replacement?
Okay.
Yes, how many more years he sees himself working in the business.
Okay.
What aspirations, what goals do you have regarding your son being in the business? Where do you see that going?
Okay. Anybody else? Come in.
About the daughter, what's the plan? If the daughter is not in the business, you want to create something else for the children.
Good.
And back to his current, what's he gonna do for his retirement? For his life?
Good.
Is there anything at this point that you feel needs to be uncovered that we haven't uncovered? Any future plans that you want to do, any other
Good
expansion?
question. Which was good. Which I said you're good, your questions were good.
What's the most important thing to you right now, on a financial level?
Survival, business surviving, okay.
Business seems to be doing well.
Good.
What else would you like to accomplish?
So, all good questions, right? So how do you take that and turn it into science? How do you turn that into, every one of you had a good thought. Wasn't a bad thought amongst a bunch. But how do you take that and turn it into the science of developing a value statement and a meaningful relationship? That's bridging. It's taking all that stuff, it's all good stuff, and turn it into something of science. So I'm going to try to do that.
Do you, like, using these boxes, do you have, depending on the data that you gather, like a starting point? Like, do you start kind of in the savings and then work your way through, or there really is?
How I ask the questions, or where I'm going now?
Yeah, like, when
Which
you
one?
start the
bridging?
process of bridging, yeah, the questions, is there, like, you have a format that you kind of start with, or it's whatever you see being most important? And
We don't know what, here's why it's not easy. We don't know what's going to end up in those boxes before we start, right?
Yeah.
So while we're filling the boxes, what we're looking for is the most impactful bridge. What's going to create the most reason to work with you, right? We're talking about motivation to work with you. What's the greatest motivator known to mankind? Is it? It's either seeking pleasure or it's avoiding pain. I'll give you a clue. Which one is it?
Avoiding pain.
Yeah.
Which is how you put it, it's kind of like the pain, you give them the pain and then the pleasure. right?
Everyone wants to have great teeth,
Yeah.
but how quickly does that get you to the dentist versus that raging toothache in the back of your mouth, right? So it'll get you there eventually because you want to have teeth when you get older, but what really moves you is the pain in the back of your mouth. So that's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
What in their situation is going to create pain to them?
I would say it's all around the business. It's just the fact that he values it most, he needed the value of $20 million, I would say, to start there.
Yeah. So generally, it's their welfare, their kids' welfare, the business. It's not asset allocation is icing on the cake. That's not a reason I get up in the morning.
I was gonna say business is survivor needs.
Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into the second step, which is diagram. So we did step one. Step two, diagram. So, Josh, you drafted a will 10 years ago, and you've told me that's a simple will.
Yeah.
So your assets go from you to your wife, down to your two children.
Yeah.
Your son and your daughter. And basically, you told me it's 50-50,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe we'll go from there down to your grandchildren. So this is the generation line, and then it goes down to your children and grandchildren. Now, by the way, there's no assets between husbands and wives. There's something called an unlimited marital deduction. So the primary subject of this talk is not estate tax, but you should be aware that there is no estate tax between a husband and a wife because there's something called an unlimited marital deduction. And when we talk about estate taxes, we're talking about crossing the generational line down to the children and the grandchildren. So, that's the will that you have. Let's talk about the assets that you have and actually plot your actual situation. So you have liquid assets that are jointly titled. Joint with a right of survivorship means the assets don't flow through your will. So the $600,000 goes directly to your wife, but it goes by operation of title, joint with a right of survivorship. We've got retirement assets for $600,000. $600,000 in your name. And again, does that go through your will?
No.
How does that go?
Beneficiary.
Yeah, it goes to your wife by beneficiary designation. So if you named me in your will and you left everything to me, these two assets would still go to your wife by operation of deed and by operation of beneficiary designation. What else do we have? We have a couple of houses that are title joint, real estate. About $1 million of real estate, net equity. Jointly titled goes to the wife. And then you got a business worth $4.5 million. That goes to your wife too. So if we add the numbers up, 4.5, 5.5, 6, somewhere between $6.5 million, and it's all up to the wife. Is there any tax? No tax.
It's also got the term life insurance, the $2 million there too.
Perfect. $8.5 million. Is it tax?
No.
Is there tax at the wife's passing?
Yes, absolutely.
How much of the estate would be taxable if they passed away together?
Anything over 5.3 million?
Great. So roughly $3 million of taxable estate upon a common disaster.
Why is it 5? It should be 10.
Here's
So everything that the husband,
Yeah, but
Thank-
it would be 10.
yeah, because there is a new law. It used to be, you had to set up tradition and trust only to say that.
You caught us.
Anymore.
No tax.
On the federal side.
Yeah, there is state.
Right. State.
But the purpose of the conversation this morning is not estate taxation. Right. Before they were portable, there would have been a problem. With the new tax credits, there's no problem, other than the state. So, what we're really here to talk about, Josh, is you told me that if something happened to you, well, let me ask the question. If something happened to you, would you like to see the business left to your wife, sold, or put in the hands of your son?
Well, my son's been in the business now for about 5 years, so I'm not entirely sure he's capable of running it yet. He shows promise, but I don't know.
Okay, we're not going to do that client.
Oh,
We're going to do
okay.
the client that wants to leave it to his son, and his son's doing a great job.
My son's kicking ass, Greg. To be honest with you, I mean, golf, gee whiz, like I played Thursday, Friday, 18 holes.
Business was worth
Pretty good.
$2 million when your son joined the business, and it's worth $4.5 now. He's really driving it.
He's driving sales great.
So let me ask you, Josh, since your son's doing so well, if something happened to you, would you like to see the business left to your wife? Would you like to see the business sold? Or would you like to see the business in the hands of your son?
Ultimately, I want my son to get it, but,
If something happened to you yesterday, would you like to see the business sold? Would you like to see the business in the hands of your wife? Or would you like to see the business in the hands of your son?
my son.
Okay, so let's talk about your current situation. So, I'm going to erase some of this because we don't have space. If I were in a meeting, I would flip the next page. Well, actually, you know what? Why don't we do that? So, what you, Josh, so what you've told me is if something happened to you,
Well, we're making an assumption here, right, Greg? What if that's not his primary concern?
well, we can only do one case at a time.
Okay, that question came up, but how did you decide that was the most prevalent at the moment?
Stop making the rules and I'm doing the case. But, you know, we could do another case where they're not interested in doing out the business, but you can only do one. So we gotta do one, so I picked one. I picked one because I'm doing the work, so I get to pick. I thought it would be the most helpful. So, there would be other tracks, Howard, to answer your question.
You may want to just only talk about retirement. You may only want to talk about money for the rest of your life.
Right, you may want to talk about golf, but we gotta pick something, so my primary objective of this class is to have you learn something specific.
But what I just want to say is that may be part and parcel of what that whole plan encapsulates, which is, you know, one aspect, but it keeps going.
I'm gonna let you teach a class next time. Okay, I'm gonna teach this class.
Okay. I'm not trying to teach it, trust me.
If something happens to you, where are all the assets going? Your wife. So let's focus on the business. In your current plan, you own the business and you have a will that's leaving everything to your wife. And your son is out here running the business, and your daughter's out here. So what have you told me? You've told me that you have a plan which has an objective, if something happened to you, have your son in the business. But in reality, your current plan leaves the business to your wife.
Wouldn't he eventually get it, Greg? The assets would eventually go to my son, right?
Yes. Very possibly, your son will get a part of it. Right? Because under your current situation, your assets go from you to your wife, and then to your kids, split 50-50. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to your wife's will, if there's 20 years in between. So the answer to the question really is, I don't know if your wife's going to get it, if your son's going to get it. You understand, Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Okay. So, currently, you do have a plan in place which is leaving the business to your wife. And you've told me your goal, your objective is to get the business to your son. Do you see any problems with this situation? One you just pointed out to me, which is we don't really have a strategy to get from here to here. And in fact, you may never get from here to here. Right? What are some other problems with this situation, Mr. Client?
I just wanted to ask you, in your mind, just so I understand, why are you thinking, what are some causes why the business couldn't get from the wife to the son?
Mr. Client, what is your plan to get it from here to here?
So after
How is it going to get here?
when the wife passes, it's going to get split between the son and daughter, right?
Well, that could be a problem, couldn't it? And by the way, what happens if your wife remarries? So what is your plan to get it from here to here?
That won't happen. You got to put them together.
So let's talk, Darryl?
That was the question I was gonna ask the client is, would you want your wife to benefit from your son getting the business? How would
Your wife's getting the business, but you want to get it to your son.
Right.
What's your plan?
Do you want your wife to benefit from your son getting the business? Do you want her to get
That'll be in the class you teach.
Is the business supposed to support your wife? How is your wife supported while you're gone?
You're leaving the business to your wife, but your objective is to leave it to your son. Do you see any problem with that?
Yes.
What are the problems? Let's talk about,
And a quick question here.
what are the problems?
The problem can be if there's no enough defense
What's the-
agreement between
what's the-
husband and
What's the problem?
The problem can be that son get mad at father and can leave the business because What part of it is?
Disappointment, what's another problem?
Divorce.
My wife doesn't know how to run the business.
Wife doesn't know how.
My wife would be my son's new boss.
So we got all sorts of issues here, right? What's another
Leaving the
problem?
daughter out if the valuation is
Do
5
you-
million, you know, there's a,
Do you want to equalize, would you like to be, is being fair to your daughter important?
where's the daughter?
Absolutely. Okay, so let me go through some of the problems. So I'm going to start to do this. We've diagnosed. Now we're going to do this. Darrell and Howard, I'm not trying to be rude, but I want to be pointed because I'm pointed with the client. I don't get distracted. The reason I'm behaving like this is because I'm not rude to the client, but I'm pointed. I know where I'm going. And
Obviously, you're just having this conversation with the husband, the wife is not present, correct?
Maybe
she could be.
Oh, okay, so you'll throw that out there in front of the husband if she gets remarried? You know, that's
I'm not going to get, I don't want to get distracted. So, let's talk about the problem with the situation you've created, Mr. Client. First problem is possible unintentional disinheritance of your son to the business. What else? Who's running the business? His son. His son's running the business and mom's the owner. Do you see any problems, potential problems with that? What's mom looking for when dad dies? Security. What does a good business owner do? They reinvest in their business. They buy buildings, they buy inventory, they buy salespeople. You see a potential for disharmony? Mom wants cash, son wants growth. Son's running the business, mom owns the business. There's a reason less than 10% of family businesses make it 2 generations. This kind of bad planning is a big part of that reason. What else? Who said?
It's all the work is done.
They're not even at equalization yet because, so that's not, another one. That's another problem.
Daughter.
What about the daughter?
How does she get her share?
Mom gets sick. She decides to move in with the daughter in a nice house on Long Island with the executive husband. Another form of disinheritance. What does mom need?
Cash.
Yeah, is there a predictable way of getting her cash?
Well, that's why I bought life insurance a few years ago, Greg.
$2 million of insurance. So, can mom live off $2 million? Yes, let's make it no. She's gonna get cash flow from the business. Can't she just get my salary? No. She can't just get your salary. She doesn't work in the business. She's not entitled to salary. IRS doesn't allow people who aren't working to take salary. Besides, isn't your son going to need that money to hire somebody to replace you? So, Mr. Client, can you see that this is less than an optimal situation? Have I done this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explore an option with you. What a lot of my business owner clients like to do is, if they've got an objective, to create certainty around that objective. So what if we came up with a plan where there was an agreement in place. You pass away, and business goes to your wife. She's obligated to take those shares and sell them. And your son is obligated to take money and buy it. You think that's a good idea? Yeah. We'll get the shares and the control into your son's hand. Sink or swim, it's his. And we'll get cash into mom's hand. What's mom gonna get here? We don't know. We will create certainty here. We're gonna create a price. We don't want mom and son. Most people don't want mom and son negotiating. So we're gonna create a price. So, the value's $4 million, we'll call it $4 million. Mom's gonna get $4 million, and son's gonna get the shares. When mom passes away, or earlier, we're gonna build a plan for the daughter. So there's $2 million of insurance, plus there's $4 million of business proceeds. We can talk about whether or not we even want to make daughter wait till mom passes away. Or some portion of this may go to daughter at dad's death. Does that make sense, Mr. Klein?
Can the business afford it?
Thank you. Thank you.
What if my son can't run the business?
I'm going to stay there for now. Thank you. Son can run the business, he's better than I am. What?
That's 60 years old. We don't know what kind of health he's in.
So, Mr. Klein, you've raised a good question. What I'm going to suggest to you is there are different types of agreements, and there are different ways to fund agreements. So, you've asked a question. I'm going to talk to you about funded versus unfunded. What you just described is an unfunded agreement. Son has to come up with a check every month, every year to mom. $4 million plus interest, probably about $5 million over 10 years with interest. So we're talking about $500,000 a year over the next 10 years. Could the business do that? Okay.
Well, I'm dead, I'm not taking my income anymore.
You're right, you were pulling out the 450. So we could use some of it or all of that. But my guess is you were performing some services to the business as well,
Sure.
right? Is there any chance you're going to need to spend some of that on somebody to do the roles that you were doing?
Yeah, I'm sure my son will have to hire another salesperson. He's been handling a lot of the operations.
Yeah, or maybe business will be really good and you can cover it. So, we're not going to decide in today's meeting which makes more sense, funded or unfunded. But you asked a question, what happens if we can't afford it? So I'm going to tell you some options. Options that we'll explore further in the next meeting, if we decide to work together. So the next option I'm going to show you is a funded option. Funded means funded with insurance. If something happens, back to diagram. So let's take a look at funded. Add mom, son, daughter. Dad dies. Mom gets the shares. She's obligated to sell the shares. When mom gets the shares, does she pay tax? Right, no tax. No tax. What happens to the shares when they go to mom, from an income tax standpoint?
Shares, adjusted basis.
Yeah.
Who said adjusted basis?
Step up.
Right, step up in basis. Everybody know what a step up in basis is? Dad paid zero for the business. Dad built the business from the ground up. If Dad sells the business for $4 million, he owes a tax bill of capital gains tax of $800 to $1 million, to 20%. If he sells the business. When mom inherits the business, her basis gets stepped up to fair market value. So if mom sells the business, what does she pay in tax?
Zero.
Zero. Mom inherits the business, she gets a step up in basis, and she sells it to son. For how much? For $4 million. It's easy. Does mom pay tax?
No.
Does son pay tax? No.
No.
So now money comes back to mom. That's tax-free money.
Greg, would you show the taxable gain and loss from that sale? We're still trying to cause pain.
I just did it.
No, I'm just
No.
saying, but like, would you actually like write down like how much you pay the government, like you just said, the numbers on the actual,
The analytics.
right?
Well, if Dad sells the business, there's $1 million in tax.
Yep.
But we're not talking about Dad selling the business, so it's not paying. I would if that were the pain, but
Right.
this is not paying here. There's no talk of Dad selling the business today. So, yeah, if it were real pain to them, I would show it to them. But this, I'm just explaining how taxes work. This is not pain. Because he's saying, I'm not selling the business, what do I care? So if it were pain, I would write the number down. So, everybody get that? It's a good question. So I got son out here, but he, this is $500,000 a year. Even though Dad was making $450 with interest, $500 a year. This is what I said, I'm not sure if the son will be able to come up with this every year. If sales stay strong, if the economy stays strong, if he does a good job, maybe replacing me is only $100,000.
Would you bring up how the son would be doing that exchange if it's an unfunded agreement with after-tax dollars?
I would do it just the way I'm doing it now.
She wouldn't even mention it.
I would do it just the way I'm doing it right now. I don't know if taxes are gonna come up later, but this is how I would do it. This would be the meeting. So, we talked about an idea that a lot of clients like to look at, which is funding the agreement. So, fully funded agreement says there's $4 million of insurance payable to your son. When your son gets $4 million in cash, does he pay tax?
No.
Why?
That's tax free.
Right.
Unless it was paid directly to the business.
Life insurance is not income taxable if it's set up properly.
Even if the business pays for it.
Business shouldn't be deducting it, it should be after-tax expense to the
Even if-
business.
What if the business does deduct it?
Then
Can't deduct it.
It's creating tax fraud if it's deducted. It's creating tax fraud. Life insurance is not, the only place life insurance is ever tax deductible legally is in a pension plan. That's the only place. Is the son paying taxes on the life insurance?
No.
No. The son gets $4 million. Can the son run off to Hawaii with his kids and family?
No.
With the $4 million? Who says yes? Who says no?
If it's in an agreement.
if it's an agreement that
Yeah,
has.
Trick question. This is tied into my agreement. So in this example, the answer is no. Mr. Client, because we drafted a proper agreement, by the way, we call this a buy-sell and or shareholders agreement. A lot of clients elect to fund this agreement, and the life insurance is payable to the son. Son gets the money, but he gets it with an obligation. What's the obligation?
Got to buy shares from
He's obligated to take that money and give it to mom. When mom takes that $4 million, does she pay income tax?
No,
No, why?
Both
she's
days,
doing it in
days.
exchange for shares.
Step up and get right. Mom has $4 million. Mom have certainty?
Yep.
Does mom have security? What did the son get?
Business.
100% ownership.
Of the business. Now, Mr. Klein, if insurance didn't have a premium, this would be an easy exercise. Everyone would fully insure. I'll suggest to you that there are many types of insurances, different ways to structure them, and some businesses decide to partially fund. So another example is $2 million of insurance with a $2 million note. If we decide to get together again, we'll take a look at some of those options. Make sense? Any questions?
You're thinking I should buy insurance, Greg?
Don't know. What concerns me is that you have a plan that says, I'd like my son to have the business if something happened to me, but you have a reality where you're leaving the business to your wife, and your wife may or may not be leaving to your son. Pain, option generation.
Greg, why would you mentioned 2 options here, one fully funded and one possibly with a note. Why would you go for those 2 options? Fully funded, 4 million, or you could do 2 million with a note.
There's probably 100 options, 500,000 of insurance, 500, I mean,
Might not be able to afford the whole thing, so.
well, what, you said, you're asking me why
Yeah.
doesn't everybody fully fund? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, given the business, you know, it's pretty profitable, why not, you know?
Fully fund?
Yeah.
Well, you might. The question is cash flow and how much money we can move from your cash to the asset of premium and life insurance. I don't know that yet. So if we get together again, and I'll tell you how I get paid in a second, but if we get together again, do you have financial statements? Do you have your tax returns? I'll take a copy of those before I go. All right, and we'll talk about what's available in terms of liquidity and cash flow in order to make this fully funded. Sounds like that's what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see if that's possible.
This is considered a one-way by some.
Yeah, I guess one way, right? Son doesn't have shares. That raises a good conversation point, which I'll save for a second.
This also allows the daughter to get some piece from that, so that's, from mom to.
We even spoke
No, you
about
haven't
the
already.
yet.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna, we're running out of time, so let me tell you where else I would go with it. Well, before I go there, any questions on what a bridge is and what a bridge should look like? So, we got data? Did we diagram? Did we diagnose? Did we disturb? Did we option generate debrief? That's a bridge. So that's what we're here to learn, how to do a bridge. If you don't learn the approach talk, you can't get the data. If you can't get the data, you can't draw the diagram. If you can't draw the diagram, you can't diagnose the problem, you can't disturb, and you can't debrief. It's science. It all starts with a properly executed approach talk. Where I might go with this, any questions on any of this? Because we're done. Okay, so now, Howard, what were you saying about other things? Now's the time to talk about all those other issues.
Well, I have a lot of other questions, but the first one I would say is while you're going through this, the husband is very healthy. Right? They got plans, they want to do retirement in 5 years. Will I have enough money? Will I outlive my money? And those are the things that I want to know. And,
So
what will happen to me if I get sick?
So, you got retirement plan. Is that what you just said? Correct. What else do we have? What? Yeah.
If my son is married, I'm not too fond of his wife at the moment, the business goes over to him, is there a way to make sure that he has control of the business, but it's also protected from
family asset protection. Right. What else on your mind, Mr. Klein?
Can I reduce my taxes?
Just taxes. What else on your mind?
What happens if he gets a catastrophic disease and can't run the business?
Yeah. Disability.
What else? Anything else?
It's a long-term care.
Well, I think we got it covered in there somewhere. Yeah, what else?
Well, I guess charitable giving.
What about it?
He wants to have an institution named after him.
I don't think he has enough money to have an institution.
Doesn't seem like.
His ego.
That would be nice, but,
I don't think I'm coming back with a recommendation there, but okay.
yeah, he's gotta take care of the commodity too.
Let's be charitable, that's all.
What else? Did we do, is equalization in here somewhere? I guess we've covered it here, maybe? Equalization. So, are all of these part of the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're just doing different bridges on each one of those topics.
Yeah, but I've got to prioritize as the advisor
Yeah, well, that's priority number one.
where I'm gonna spend my time. So, yeah, the client needs to have his will reviewed. It turns out we review the will, and the assets being left outright to the wife and then outright to the kids. We developed this other theme that they want to protect assets from bad marriages. So they're gonna, we talk about, so we create some new disturbance the next time we get together, because we have copies of the will. We talked to the business owner at the next meeting about maybe he wants to start gifting some of those shares to his son during his lifetime. And because Rocky is his advisor, he talks to him about not gifting them to the son, but gifting them to a trust that the son is a trustee of. Because, why Rocky?
Protected from him.
Protected from the wife.
Yeah, protected from the wife.
Doesn't want to give it to the guy's wife and lose it in a divorce.
But even if he runs into hard times, it's still, his financial situation doesn't necessarily have to impact the business.
Right. So it's protected from creditors, and one of the creditors is a wife. So, what happens if I don't die? I'm the business owner. What happens if I live a long time? I want to retire. So,
Reduce taxes.
so one of the plans we'll show you is gifting shares over time to your son and selling the balance during your lifetime. Right? You don't die until you're 90, and you want your son to be, right? So we're going to have to find a way, an exit strategy to the business, which is part of the retirement plan. All of that is part of proper planning, as he has it.
What if, you own the business, you don't die, but you're too old to work in the business, now your son gets really sick, he can't run the business.
We'll build that into the plan. That's good. What happens if your son dies? Do we need key man insurance?
Greg, this is great, but how do you get it?
I'll tell you in a second.
Strategy.
As you're gifting shares to the son, is pulling that part of the business that you're gifting out of your estate?
Yeah, we'll reduce your taxable estate if that becomes a problem. But really what we're doing is we're shifting assets to where you ultimately want to get them. We'll talk about the difference between giving away 49% and 51%. We'll talk about cash flow for you and your wife into longevity.
Question, so let's say you do the whole buy-sell agreement with that and the wife dies first.
So, yeah, so what happens?
Still got the insurance and he buys out the sister?
Mom dies,
Yep.
I guess we can leave assets to the sister. Typically not a big concern now, but it's a good question. What do you want to happen if your wife predeceases you? Maybe you don't care about business anymore and you want to pack it in and sell it all to your son. I don't know. So we could either try to build that into the plan now, or we can talk about it if and when it happens. So all of these things are important. But unless you have a science and a way to get through it, you don't have a meeting that leads to another meeting in a client relationship. If I get sidetracked with some of this in the first meeting because I don't know where I want to go, and I'm looking for, what can I talk to this guy about, and what is the low-lying fruit, and what could I sell him? You might get lucky, but could you imagine if you walk in and I walk in? What chance you have? So, this is where you're trying to get to.
So how do you run through that question in your mind, which topic is one you want to go after first? I mean, that's really like the art of this, right? I mean, that's...
Yes, you're knowing where to bridge and being able to bridge and be able to diagram while you're doing it and know that you're getting into the guy's gut is the single most important and hardest thing in this business. It's hard. There's so many variations of these business bridges, and we'll do more of them.
And I think that goes back to what Josh was saying about the qualitative questions.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You gotta focus on what the client actually brings up
No, I know.
as his key and kind of feel that way through it. But I think in relation to the money, you could say that they're, you could break up the cost of consultation here.
You want to know how, you ask me, Mr. Klein, how I get paid?
Right.
Okay. So, before I tell you how I get paid, let me tell you how the process works. I'll tell you how I get paid in a moment. But basically, before I do that, I'd like to tell you that I get paid 3 ways. The first way is charge a fee for the planning. And before I tell you what the fee is, let me tell you what it includes and what it doesn't include. So I describe it as being all-inclusive. All-inclusive means there's not going to be an additional fee for photocopies, for phone calls, for hourly meetings. What all-inclusive does not mean is any documents that need to be drafted by an attorney. We have an attorney on our staff, and they help in the planning process, but it would be a conflict of interest for them to do your planning documents. So if you need a new will, we'll recommend an attorney if you don't have one, but that bill is between you and the attorney. If you need a new buy-sell agreement, that's not something that our fee covers. So the fee basically covers a year's worth of work to get you from where you are, discuss some options, and ultimately get you to where you want to be. Meetings with you, meetings with your wife, meetings with your son, meetings with your accountant, meetings with your attorney. It's all included. And if you don't have a lot of meetings, I won't give you a discount. So use me. Use me to communicate these issues on your behalf. The fee for doing this kind of work is $3,500. The way it works is I'll come with a document to the next meeting. The document will promise you things like confidentiality and tell you how we work. So I'll come with the document, we'll sign it, you'll bring a check, and we'll start our planning process. So that's the first way I get paid. Second way I get paid is financial products. I'm licensed with hundreds of insurance company and financial asset firms. Because we do this planning, you're not obligated to buy anything. On the other hand, if you decide that some of the products that we talk about are necessary, for example, insurance to fund the buy-sell would be a good example. If you decide to buy those things, my expectation is you're going to buy them through me. In exchange for the work that I do, knowing that they'll be set up appropriately, they'll be well shopped, they'll be right in the context of your plan. Any questions? So I played a little game of words there. I said, you're not obligated to buy anything, which you're not. But on the other hand, if you do buy them, you're going to buy them from me. The reason they're not obligated to buy anything is that they paid me to do work. And then the last way I get paid, and maybe the most important, is active goodwill. So if we sit down and do work together, I'm going to have an expectation that you actively refer me to people like yourself. Generally, they have 3 characteristics. They're intelligent, they have a couple of nickels to rub together, and they care. They care about their family and the assets they've created. Any questions? I'll see you next Wednesday at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So there are a lot of other buy-sell bridges that we didn't discuss, we did not cover. We did not cover buy-sell in a non-family setting at all. We didn't even talk about what happens if there's two other parties. And we're not.
Every scenario is gonna be different.
They are. And the question that Josh asked and you guys were talking about is, how do you know what topics to pick and what to talk about? It's, you do enough of these, and you get it wrong enough times, you eventually get it right.
See the last effects.
I don't know, probably somewhere around